this. You started some controversy in the Jet universe because people were asking me for my thoughts on your trade suggestion, and I went and looked into it, and I go, huh, well, we're having Nick on the show, so this will be a good jumping off point. You wrote a whole article about a Josh Sweat for Will McDonald trade. Josh Sweat of the Cardinals, obviously Will McDonald going into his fourth year with the Jets. Let's break this down. Where does this come from? Why would this make sense for both parties involved?
Yeah, it came from a Cardinals reporter that said he was not, Josh Sweat was not at OTAs, and he's been clearly unhappy for a number of different reasons. He signed a 4-year, I think it was $78 million contract just last year, posted probably his best overall season last year with the Cardinals, had 12 sacks, obviously a former Pro Bowl player, former Super Bowl champion in Philadelphia. But if he is unhappy, the Cardinals should move him, because he's carrying a large salary, around $23 million per year in annual value. But then you ask yourself, well, why should the Jets go after a guy like this? They're not exactly contending. They're nowhere near contention at this point. But the free agents that they have brought in, the moves the Jets have made this offseason for Minkah Fitzpatrick, for Demario Davis, for obviously drafting David Bailey second overall, this defense, I think, is going to be a lot better than people really expect. And it really comes down to Aaron Glenn as a play caller. We all understand that, but they've got the talent this year to be a lot better than last season. So then it comes down to this, right? If you look at their defensive line and you look at their edge rushers specifically, Will McDonald and David Bailey, they are not built the same way, but they both have the same weakness. Neither are elite run defenders. Will McDonald can get after the quarterback. We know that. It's something along 20 sacks in 3 seasons. David Bailey, we're really excited to see what he looks like going into his first year with the Jets. But neither of them are really known for their run defense. Now, I know they brought in Joseph Osai. They brought in Enikbare. These guys are hopefully going to be able to solve that need going forward. But what Josh Sweat is able to do is he's a more complete player than Will McDonald. He just is. His run defense grade was top 30 at the position group last season, which is like 90 players better than Will McDonald last season. He's just a bigger athlete. He's more consistent. His 12 sacks last season is better than anything we've seen from Will McDonald to this point. You can play Josh Sweat on all 3 downs. You can't really do that with Will McDonald yet. And then, of course, you look at the contracts, right? Are you willing to pay an edge rusher $23 million, who has been very consistent throughout his NFL career, or are you willing to sort of give it one last go with Will McDonald? I know they put in their 5th-year option for him, so it's 2 years of team control, but are you willing to really see if he can eventually become more than just Leonard Floyd? That's something, to me, I don't think the Jets want to do or should do when you already have David Bailey, who's already going to be a guy that's focusing on rushing the passer, trying to get better in run defense. The way that I see it, if you're the Jets, you want to be able to maximize this defensive core as much as possible. Are you competing for a championship? Probably not this year. Most people are going to say no. So Josh Sweat may not want to come here in the first place, but he is not the decision maker here. The Cardinals are. And if the Cardinals want to get a young pass rusher under fair salary cap ramifications for their early stage rebuild, then this trade definitely makes sense for them, and it makes sense for the Jets because it improves their run defense. It gives them a legitimate edge rusher to pair with David Bailey, and just makes overall sense for this defense that needs a quality run stuffing edge rusher who can also rush the passer.
It just doesn't feel like it fits the timeline, though, given his age and the money that's owed to him. Like, I don't know if the Jets want to invest that level of salary into their defensive line at this point.
Well, the other thing is this, though. We could say that, but then they acquired Minkah Fitzpatrick and gave him a 3-year long-term extension.
But that's nowhere near the same amount of money as what an edge rusher who's been paid, like what Sweat is owed. Like, I'm reading your story here on SI. Sweat, I mean, he just signed a 4-year, $76.4 million deal last offseason. Minkah Fitzpatrick's making, what, $11 million a year?
Edge rushers, the position is more valuable. Sweat, I think, is a more valuable player compared to Will McDonald specifically. So you're paying for a more valuable player at a premium position going forward. That's where, to me, if you want to be able to have this defense kind of be the cog. This is what Aaron Glenn wants. He wants his defense to be able to set the tone. In order to do that, you got to stop the run. This team has been anemic at stopping the run for years now. Sweat's the kind of player that can play both. And, I see people in the comments talking about Hassan Reddick and the issues that were brought on because of him. But Hassan Reddick's run defense was nowhere near as good as Josh Sweat. He is a complete edge rusher. And yeah, he's 29 years old. There's a significant salary cap ramification to him, but it's $23 million in terms of a cap hit the next 2 years. The Jets' salary cap next year is $140 million. The year after that is $250 million. They're going to have to give a long-term extension eventually to Olu Fashanu. There's going to be long-term extensions just out eventually. But we don't know if Will McDonald can ever be the three-down player that the Jets are hoping for. We know that Josh Sweat is already like that. We talk about a huge contract. This is not a huge contract. They're not paying a guy $30 million to stop the run. The $23 million per year for a Pro Bowl edge rusher is very fair. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it improves the defense going forward.
Comments, questions, super chats, cut the line. If you think Nick Faria is nuts, you're right. However, if you want to tell him he's nuts, the Gustbuster Umbrella Hotline link is pinned in the comments. Some comments from Nick's listeners now that he's part of the SI family. Let's go through them. I always enjoy seeing what the people are saying. So, Nick, you posted the article yesterday, and some of the comments.
Oh, I love it.
I am normally with you, Nick, not seeing this one, especially with the additions we made of the D-line. Nice article. I'm sure if he's unhappy on the Cards, he'd be really excited on the Jets. Unhappy in Arizona, but he'd be happy for playing for the Jets and Glenn. From a project to Section 8, how would that make him happy? Yeah, I'm so sure he's going to be happy on the forever rebuilding Jets. Good effing Lord, you bloggers are dumb. Are you a blogger, Nick?
Absolutely not.
Pete says, what a waste of an article. Nathaniel says, gross, do better. Michael says, no, never. King of Rock, that is an insane take. And Jet Yankee fan says, hell no. Nick, the people have spoken. Your thoughts?
Well, I've heard now for 3-4 months about how the Will McDonald run defense is a major problem, and drafting David Bailey doesn't solve their run defense issue on the edge. Now you have a potential edge rusher that can do exactly what you need, who's been more productive than Will McDonald. And now we're worried about salary cap. Do we want this defense to get better, or do we just want to sit here and make sure that Will McDonald gets given a fourth opportunity to show what he can't do? Eventually, this is the player that he is. He's been through 3 seasons, and he's a really quality edge rusher. He can get after the quarterback really, really well. But Sweat has been more consistent. He's been more durable. He's been a quality player and a Pro Bowl player at the top of his game. He's been a primetime performer. Eventually, we have to bring in good players. You have to bring in good players when possible. So this idea of hanging on to Will McDonald for a player that's better than him, I think, is a little confusing when the biggest concern every Jets fan has had over the last 4 months has been, who's going to stop the run for us?
You're not wrong. But I don't know if this deal is actually going to happen. I think one thing.
Listen, we don't know if this deal is going to happen. He could very well sit there. The Cardinals could very well sit there and say, yeah, he's upset. Who gives a crap? We're gone for 2 more years. He's going to sit down and play for us and go forward from there. But it's the time of the offseason. OTAs haven't started. He's pretty much upset because OTAs have started and he's not there. So, yeah, why not exhibit what a trade could look like and why, yes, this would be an improvement over a very serious issue that the Jets have had.
Look, I like the creativity, so I'm a fan of unique ideas. I just would be very surprised if this actually came to fruition. But I like your argument, and I appreciate you making it here on the show. Nick Faria now with Sports Illustrated hanging out with us here. All right, Asmaniacs, listen up for a second. No matter what you're watching, whether it's New York sports or any game you didn't plan on caring about, there's no better way to stay locked in than with PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made simple. You're just picking more or less on player projections. That's it. No complicated lineups, no nonsense. Just you versus the numbers. And here's why I love it. Even if it's a game you normally wouldn't care about, once you got a lineup going, you're locked in. Every play matters. Every drive matters. Every at-bat matters. I've been mixing sports too. Maybe a little football, throwing some baseball, maybe some basketball. And now you've got action across the board all night. And PrizePicks makes it even better with features like early cash outs if your picks are hitting, the ability to mix multiple sports in one lineup, and you can even see what other people are playing and tail their picks. So if you haven't tried it yet, what are you doing? Download the PrizePicks app right now. Use code HMA. That's HMA, and you'll get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, it's HMA on PrizePicks. PrizePicks, where it always feels good to be right. Light Grenade writes in, people thinking this is a bad idea for any reason other than contract value show that they only watch the Jets because no one would question Sweat over McDonald. I don't think the Cardinals would do this, would be my thing. I think Sweat's a better player than Will McDonald.
Well, I think the other piece to it with Arizona would be they are further behind on their rebuild than the Jets are. The Jets they've had a year of this sort of, I don't want to say tanking business, but they struggled for this year. They kind of punted away their assets. They used one of the top assets for a top edge rusher in the draft. Okay. The Cardinals aren't there yet. They just hired a new head coach. They don't have their long-term quarterback on the roster. They don't really have much to really get excited about. You know, they drafted Jeremiah Love. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. The defense, you know, the secondary is getting older. The defensive line's getting older. The offensive line wasn't as good as last season. So they're in the early stages of their own rebuild. They're probably a year from where the Jets were going back to last year. So if that's the case, they could look to shred some salary cap and take on younger players. That's kind of where the thought process is. It's not, the Cardinals are getting worse by acquiring Will McDonald, maybe even a mid-round pick for Josh Sweat. It's getting rid of the Sweat contract, taking on a younger player, and letting him see if they can develop him into that potential mold for their future rebuild as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first Asmaniac to be a part of the raffle today is the one, the only, Cisco Lopez. How did he do it? Well, he got us rolling here with 5 gifted memberships to the community. Cisco, this is for you.
Sometime I do super chat. Sometime I do give membership. But all the time I love the Jake Asman show. They call me Cisco Lopez.
Here we go. If you hear your name called, you're a channel member. Stanley Santos, Aaron Camus, David Perlmutter, Joshua Gonzalez, Rogue 5899, and Faria in a Speedo 69, all receiving a gifted membership. One of those names might not have been real. This photo, though, certainly is. Come meet Nick Faria at Gangrene Beach Club this July 11th. Tickets are on sale now. Leon says the 4-player edge total for the Jets during the 2026 season is $61.5 million between Osai and Abare, Bailey, and McDonald. What is the breakdown, in your opinion, of the Jets defensive line? Not just the edges, but how they plan to use the interior guys. Like if Aaron Glenn's putting together his defense, what's the base defense in your opinion? And I'm sure we'll get a better idea when we start seeing these guys during OTAs, but a big part of the conversation centered around the Bailey-Reese debate was, well, can you put McDonald on the field at the same time as Bailey? I'll tell you what, Nick, Bailey better be out there a lot as a rookie. Yeah. And if it means Will McDonald's not playing as much, so be it. I use the 2nd overall pick on David Bailey. I need him to play.
I completely agree. And I will say, if I were to break this down, again, they want to be multiple, right? So I would say let's focus that now on the 3-4 defense. They'll probably have Devontae Sweat as the nose tackle. You have Briggs and probably David Onyemata as the defensive ends in that case. And then, of course, the edge rushers right now for a first down. You know, let's think first down. It's probably David Bailey and Joseph Osai, and then rotating in with Enikbare and Will McDonald as well. Third down, though, if it's 3rd and long, I would sit there and say you probably have a 4-down line set. It'll probably be Briggs. It'll probably be Onyemata, maybe throw in Harrison Phillips as well, McDonald and Bailey, and you let them go to town based on that alignment.
McDonald and Bailey, and you let them go to town. You owed Sailor, you're rhyming.
It's just the right time to do it, man. Here in Montauk for another few hours, it's a beautiful place. I'll say that.
Well, I appreciate you carving out some time, not only to just join us, but again to pose in the pool with the Speedo on a Montauk.
Oh, good God! The problem is I've got an uncle-in-law, I guess, who watches this show, big Doug McGowan, and he's going to take that and he's going to run with it. So I appreciate that. That's going to be hung up on the family Thanksgiving dinner for the next year and a half.
Ladies and gentlemen, big thank you to Doug McGowan for watching the show. Shout out to the Faria fam. Leon says 3-4 defensive up front will be Sweat on the nose. Harrison Phillips and David Oyamada at the defensive end spot. Bailey and Osai at edge, outside linebacker. Sherwood and DeMario at inside linebacker. I think there's something to this, Leon. Everyone assumes the Jets are going to play a lot more 3-4, and I think they will. I forget who made this point. It might have been Frankie V. He might not be wrong. They might actually be better suited, though, for a 4-3. They can be very multiple, and I hope that Glenn is willing to do that if he's truly Mr. Superpowers of the play calling. Like, I don't think the Jets should box themselves in with a defensive alignment because some of their pieces you could argue fit better in a 4-3 besides Tavondre Sweat, who they obviously acquired to play in the middle of a 3-4.
Well, I would say Onyemata, Sweat, and probably Harrison Phillips. Those three are better suited for a 3-4 defense based on their alignment, based on their matchups overall. But if you were to go to a 4-3, McDonald, Bailey, and Juwan Briggs are probably the three that work out well. But this goes based to Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn has said from the very beginning when he made the case that he was going to call plays on defense this year that they were going to be multiple. They were not just going to run a 3-4. They were not just going to run a 4-3. It's going to be a lot of different looks at different times, which I commended him for. I thought that's the only way that you can coach defense now in the modern NFL. If your base is one way, then you are really handicapping yourself against an offense that knows how to attack a 3-4 or a 4-3 or any of these different alignments. You got to be able to change things up. And I think Aaron Glenn was smart to do it this way. He built his defensive line in a way where they can play a lot of different looks, which is also why I kind of brought up the Sweat trade in the first place, because he's the kind of player that fits that mold. He can play in the 3-4. He can play in the 4-3. And he fits exactly what they need across the board, because this is a player who's played in the 4-3, who's played in the 3-4. So that's kind of where that fits as well.
Want to give a shout out to an Asmaniac who's locked and loaded into today's show. Shout out to listener Lou Del Mondo, who's watching us. He's got the Jet football at his desk at the office right now, drinking a V8 energy drink. Shout out to Lou, who will be joining us, Jet fans, in Nashville for a bunch of the great events that we have planned for week 1 of the season. For those of you who are coming to Nashville and you want early access to the event we have planned at Barstool Nashville, the #1 bar down in Nashville, go on to the Patreon, get in the Discord, and you can already lock in your spot in RSVP. That's patreon.com/Jake Asman Show. We're going to have an event Saturday for Jet fans and a tailgate before the game Sunday morning right into kickoff at Nissan Stadium. Jets and the Titans. Robert Saleh against Aaron Glenn. Nick, this is the first time I've had you on since the schedule release. Give us some takeaways on the Jets schedule. Your thoughts on how things line up for the Jets.
Oh, well, I will say the NFL did them no favors. And I know they have a tough stretch to begin the year with the NFC North and everything. But whose bright idea was it? Whose idiotic bright idea was it to give the Jets Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Justin Herbert for 3 straight weeks in weeks 9, 10, and 11? That's just absolutely ridiculous. You couldn't have spread that out at all. I mean, come on. But that's going to be a big 3-week timeline for Aaron Glenn. If he's able to win one of those games, I think they'll be in good shape. You've got three playoff teams. Mahomes is going to be healthy by then. It's just unfair for a team like the Jets who are building or trying to build this the right way. I am not actually as concerned over their first 4 games as a lot of Jet fans are, mostly because you look at the Green Bay Packers. And it really depends on if Micah Parsons is going to be healthy. The word is he may not be ready. He may start the season on the PUP list. And if that happens, That means he misses week 2. And the Packers did not win a football game last year when Micah Parsons was not on the field with them. So I think they are more talented than the Tennessee Titans. I think there's a chance they could steal a game against the Packers. Detroit, Chicago, look, they are what they are. Those could easily be losses. Maybe they pull off an upset there, whatever. The Browns stink. I think they could easily win that game. I think there is a path to getting to at least 2-3 or even 3-2 if they're able to pull off that upset. But I will say, Jake, I know you got some flack calling week 1 a must-win. I'm not going to call it a must-win, but that is a game.
It's a gigantic game. It's not a literal must-win, obviously, but any Jet fan knows they lose that game, you're going to be thinking, here we go again.
And you know who else is probably going to be thinking that? Woody Johnson as well. This is kind of a measuring test for Aaron Glenn to show, listen, you made the right call. Last year wasn't good, but we're building this the right way. We're going to show it by taking on the coach that you wanted to fire 5 games into the 2020-2024 season. So I'm not calling it a must-win, but it is probably the most important week 1 game the Jets have had in quite some time because it is really going to be a barometer for Aaron Glenn and his staff, simply because if you can't beat Robert Saleh and you can't beat this Titans team, where the hell are the wins coming from? Just where? The North is difficult. The West is difficult. Maybe you beat the Browns. The Dolphins aren't going to be as good, but beating the Titans and beating Robert Saleh is the first time you could really see Jets coaches get a win and get a little bit of grace from their fan base. Because, listen, they could beat Saleh and they lose the next 3 games and they're 1-3 and everyone's pissed off again. But by beating Robert Saleh, it's a little bit of grace, gives you a little bit of a cushion going into the start of the season when you do have a hard schedule. 12th hardest in the league based on last year's winning percentage.
Hey, here's the deal. Just got no chance unless you click on that like button. And you got to make sure you subscribe to the Jake Asman Show. You don't, you can get the f*** out. Now let's go, Asmaniacs. We're built for this shit.